Good evening. Today I'm going to talk about fracking. This isn't the speech yet. I'm going to talk about fracking, so I'm going to use some vocab. First of all, the first piece of vocab, which hopefully you should know, but just reiterating, is shale gas. The second is the Oil and Gas Authority, or OGA. But I can't remember if I actually say OGA in the speech. But Oil and Gas Authority, and also Andrea Leadsom, who is a British politician. Or I can't remember if she still is, because, you know, politics. Okay, I'm starting now. So, as many of you may not know, the UK government has halted fracking in England with immediate effect in a watershed moment for environmentalists and community activists. Ministers have also warned shale gas companies that the government cannot support future fracking projects. And this is a huge blow for companies that were hoping to capitalise on this new source of income in the fossil fuel industry and a new growing domain within this industry. This decision by the government follows the recent publication of a scientific study, and this warned the government that it was not possible to rule out unacceptable consequences for people living near fracking sites. Now, these people have long suspected consequences in terms of public health, the environment, and the structural integrity of their homes and businesses because of the fracking sites that were located near them. And indeed, a series of earth tremors were triggered near the UK's only active fracking site. And this fracking site is in the county of Lancashire in the north of England. These tremors breached the earthquake limits imposed by the government. And this meant that fracking was halted at the site in Lancashire. Now, these earthquake limits, were introduced after earth tremors occurred in 2011. And these earth tremors were suspected of being caused by fracking activities from the site that I've just mentioned. Now, this scientific report that the government is basing its decision on was undertaken by the Oil and Gas Authority, or OGA. And this report also warned that it was not possible to predict the magnitude of the earthquakes that could be triggered by fracking, which of course demonstrates a huge potential risk and an unknown risk for local inhabitants. Now, as a result, the government has said that it could not agree to future fracking until compelling new evidence is provided that proves fracking could be safe. Andrea Leadsom, who is the Business and Energy Secretary, said, "The government has always been clear that shale gas exploration in the UK must be carried out safely." Now, what safely means in her terms is not entirely clear. But she also went on to say, after reviewing the OGA's report into recent seismic activity in Lancashire, it is clear that we cannot rule out future unacceptable impact on the local community. Now, for this reason, I have concluded we should put a moratorium on fracking in England with immediate effect. Now, this decision by the government is a major U-turn, particularly from our beloved Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who has previously praised fracking as an industry and boasted that it would hold huge future benefits. Another reason the government is ending its support for fracking is financial. The industry is struggling economically. The government has established plans in the past to introduce fracking all over the UK, but these plans are running years behind schedule, and they have already cost the taxpayer 32 million at the very least, without producing any energy at all. So what is fracking? It's also known as hydraulic fracturing, which is the long name for this. and it involves pumping water, chemicals and sand underground at an extremely high pressure to fracture the shale rock and release the trapped oil and gas within. And this process can be carried out vertically, or, as is more common, by drilling horizontally into the rock to expand on existing channels within the rocks. The term fracking, as you can imagine, refers to the fact that the rock is fractured by this process. Fracking companies were, rather oil and gas companies were, and still are, very keen to carry out fracking operations. Because in the UK, large swathes of shale gas have been discovered underground, particularly in the north of England, as I mentioned. And they see this shale gas as an untapped source of wealth. The government issued around 100 fracking licences to companies, but only one site overall was cleared to start fracking activities in the end. And these were then suspended in 2011 due to these high magnitude earth tremors that were suspected of being caused by fracking. And fracking activity was only resumed again in 2018. So far, fracking has only been carried out in England, as the devolved governments of Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland stated that they would only approve fracking activities if more environmental tests were carried out and that they were proven to be completely safe. So what do other EU countries think about fracking? Around a decade ago, many EU leaders were calling for fracking to be introduced to provide an independent, competitive energy supply. And this was because they identified competition from energy produced by fracking in the US, and as well as Canada and China. However, environmental concerns and very strong public backlash caused fracking to be banned in France in 2011. This was the first EU country to do so. In Bulgaria, they banned fracking in the year 2012, and fracking is also effectively banned in the Netherlands, which came into force in 2015. Germany also banned fracking in 2016, and Ireland banned it in 2018. Coming back to France, in 2017, France stated that it would ban all forms of oil and gas extraction, and this would come into complete effect by 2040. Now, this is rather a symbolic gesture rather than a really effective one, because France only extracts around 815,000 tonnes of oil per year, which is an amount that Saudi Arabia produces in a few hours. But Emmanuel Macron stated that this ban would encourage other bigger producers to follow suit and follow France's example to find renewable alternatives to oil and gas. So let's come back to the UK. The UK government's decision to halt fracking in England comes after years and years of bitter opposition to the procedure by green lobby groups and local communities, particularly in these northern counties of England where fracking was to be introduced. So the government's decision has been welcomed as a victory for common sense by green groups, including Greenpeace UK. It has also been celebrated by campaigners who have fought for almost a decade against this controversial fuel extraction process. The chief executive of one green charity said, "This moratorium is a tremendous victory for communities and the climate." According to campaigners, the decision is a fantastic win for local democracy, as well as everyone who cares about protecting the countryside from climate catastrophe and mass industrialisation. However, many are still concerned that the Conservative government have only stopped fracking temporarily due to bad publicity from these earth tremors that I mentioned. They are concerned that the government will then relaunch it after the election if they stay in power, saying that it has found new evidence that it is safe. But in contrast, the opposition party, so the Labour Party, have said that they will ban fracking completely if they're elected to power. So this could be an issue that sways the election. This fracking moratorium introduced by the Conservatives was revealed alongside plans for a major review of the UK's transition to a green economy, which is something on the tip of everyone's tongues nowadays. And the UK government has stated it will be transitioning to a green economy by 2050. So we'll just have to see if that comes to pass. Thank you.